We're live streaming. Streaming's on. Okay, thank you. So good morning, everyone. This is the Prince George's County Delegation. Today is March the 14th. It is 9:03 p.m. I'm Delegate Andrea Harrison, First Vice Chair. Delegate Williams is having some technical difficulties with her camera. But in the meantime, we'll just go ahead on and get started because we want to make sure that we are respectful of everyone's time. So I'm going to go ahead on and open us up with prayer, and then we will turn to our guest. So if you all would just bow in a word of prayer with me. Father, we come to you right now, thanking you for this day, for this is the day that you have made. We make a conscious choice to rejoice and be glad in it. We thank you, Father, that you have seen fit to give us these responsibilities to help your people, to do what is right for your people, to help Prince George's County, the state of Maryland, and the United States of America. So, Father, we ask that on this day you will continue to give us your wisdom, that you will continue to guide us in everything that we do. Help us, Lord, with patience, with love, with compassion, and with kindness. Father, we thank you that you are not the author of confusion, but you will confuse the enemy. So we ask that you would just continue to bless us and to help us along. And we lift this prayer up to you in the name that is above all names. Amen. With that, I did see Congressman Steny Hoyer. Um, yeah, there he is. Congressman Hoyer. Well, do we have Senator Van Hollen on yet? I don't see him. Congressman Hoyer, you have the floor.
Andrea, good to be with you.
Good to be with you. Thank you so much for being with us.
Andrea, I'm in Loudoun County at a Democratic Issues Conference, and we spent the last 3 days talking about the crisis and chaos that is going on in Washington, D.C. And I feel badly about that, but we're doing everything we can to bring some sort of rationale to the work in Washington. But as you know, the Republicans continue to want to slash and burn effectively and create great trauma. I see Glenn Ivey, my partner representing Prince George's County, on the phone. He's down here with me, and we're trying to bring some calm and rationality and some peace of mind to our federal employees. You know, we have about 100,000 federal employees in Prince George's County, and they are being traumatized, as you know. And I want to thank you for the efforts that you and the Prince George's delegation are making to bring some peace of mind to our federal employees and let them know that we're there to stand by them in this time of real trauma for them. Andrea,
Is there anything else anything in particular that you want?
Let me say that one of the things we're talking about, as you know, is a continuing resolution. All of you know what a continuing. We need to fund the government, and the Republicans have had essentially a year and a half to pass a budget for fiscal year 25, which is we're in that fiscal year now, and have not done so. And as a result, 2 days ago, we had on the floor of the House a funding bill for the balance of the year, which to September 30th. It was inadequate, dangerous, and is going to cause great trouble to the states, to the localities. And Glenn and I and every other Democratic save one voted against it. It was not good for the country, not good for Maryland, not good for our people, not good for the federal employees, but more importantly, not good for the American people. So we'll see what the Senate does on this resolution. But it is a darn shame that we have an OMB director who came into office. He was the author of one of the chapters of the Project 2025. And what he said in a private meeting is he wanted to traumatize federal employees. And boy, he sure has accomplished that. But let me tell you something. If you wanted to make the government inefficient, as opposed to this Department of Governmental Efficiency, they've done everything but. They have put the federal employee and the federal government in a place where it cannot create any kind of stability or confidence in the American people, or sadly for our allies around the world. Glenn and I and the other members of the Maryland delegation, Virginia delegations, and frankly, Democrats throughout the country are trying to bring some rationality, as I said, some stability. We made a deal. McCarthy made a deal with President Biden on this budget. This is really still President Biden's, it's not his budget now, but it was his to begin with. And we made a deal. That deal was a deal that was hard fought. Nobody thought it was 100% good, but we made a deal. But unfortunately, the Republicans have abandoned that deal and have gone to slash and burning not only federal employees themselves, but the federal government, and the impact on farmers, the impact on hospitals and nurses, the impact on veterans, the impact on children, and the impact on seniors. They have suggested in this, in their reconciliation bill, which is a bill simply to pass a tax cut for the wealthiest in America and make the debt worse, not better, which they talk about a lot. But they want to cut $880 billion, a large portion of which will be from Medicaid. And all of you know one of your major expenditures in the state of Maryland and every other state is Medicaid. And, people sort of think, well, that's a poor people's program. Yes, there are people who need it because they don't have good economic status, but it is also a seniors program. It's also a children's program. It's also a program for people with disabilities. So we're talking about a very substantial expenditure in the state of Maryland. And if that $880 billion or some portion of that is cut from Medicaid, it will have a direct impact on all of you and on the state of Maryland, and on, frankly, our budget deficit that you're grappling with. We have a $3.3 billion deficit. You're trying to work on that. And the federal government, to the extent that we cut even further on that which you expect, it's going to make your job much tougher and going to put people at risk in our state. So that's one of the big things that we're working on. We're also very worried about veterans because they're cutting funds for the PACT Act, which was to help veterans who had been exposed to toxic materials to get the kind of medical care that they need and deserve, and that we want to make sure they get. So it's a tough time dealing with rational policy in Washington, D.C.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you so much.
Andrea,
Thank you so much, Congressman Hoary. I'm finally got my technical situation taken care of. So
okay, hi, Nicole.
welcome. And I see we also have Congressman Ivy here. Thank you so much as well, Congressman Ivy, for joining us. We hear on the news all of the difficulties that are going on there in DC. And so I don't know if you have anything to add to what has already been said.
Just a couple quick comments. I mean, today is a very, very big day. So the court cases, we've been winning those. Over 100 plus have been filed. There are groups like Democracy Forward that are filing those across the country. We had two big wins yesterday with injunctions where judges ordered the Trump administration to reinstate probationary employees primarily, but it's sort of the sea tide's heading that way in a very big way. That intersects with this vote today in the Senate that Steny was just referencing. We voted against it on Tuesday. As he pointed out, I think we only lost one Democrat. It's like 214 out of 215 voted to oppose it. I'm hearing news reports, though, that Schumer and some of the other Senate Democrats are thinking about voting for this bill. And that would be a big problem for the reasons we voted against it, and Steny laid a lot of those out. But it would also undermine our ability to win the court cases. And I can go into the particulars about that. But because there are very few instructions for the appropriations and where the money should go, I think it actually would strengthen the impoundment argument that the Trump administration's been trying to set up for. And also it puts us at risk for things like he can redirect money from red states to from blue states to red states, because it gives them a lot more leeway about what to do with the dollar. So the problems Steny just pointed out could be really compounded by giving him the extra discretion. So there's a lot of folks this morning here at this House Democrats retreat who were scrambling around trying to reach their senators and encourage them to vote against this bill, because they have the ability to block it if they stick together over there. I didn't want to mention one other quick thing, though, that's kind of related. We're doing another town hall meeting on Tuesday night at Suitland High School in the auditorium. That's Steny's alma mater. So I think it's 6:30 to 7:30. Although, you know, you say 7:30, but those things tend to tend to run a little late. But we want to have another chance for people to come out and get the updates, especially the update on what happens with this vote today. And then we're going to have a Medicaid town hall kind of roundtable thing next week as well. I think that's Wednesday. And that goes to the other issue Steny was talking about, the $881 billion in cuts for Medicaid and the like. So that's kind of where we are. We'll have hopefully good news by the end of the day, depending on what the Senate does, but we'll have to see.
Okay. Thank you so much. We are going to take a few quick questions because I know you all have a hard cutoff at 9:30 because you guys got to get back to doing the business that you need to take care of for today. And so, members, if we can just keep our questions short and concise, we only have about 15 minutes for questions. So you can raise your virtual hand or your actual hand. First, I see Delegate Taylor.
Hi.
I'm sorry, Delegate Roberts. I apologize.
Oops, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Madam Chair. Mine is very quick. Congressman Ivey and Congressman Hoyer, thank you so much for being here. I just wanted to point out that Suitland High School is my alma mater as well. Thank you. Class of 1990.
Go Rams. Go Rams. I was a little before 90.
All right, Delegate Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Congressman, both of you for being here today. I have a meeting tonight actually with some of our constituents and some leaders in the community to talk about federal cuts and actually how to pull together some resources for them. I know, Congressman Ivey, you have a meeting later this week or this weekend, but could you comment on how the recent judge's ruling to reinstate the probationary employees, like really, what does that mean? Because I know my folks are going to ask, well, does that mean that I go back to work? Like, do I have to work from home? And am I going to be recognized? Do I get my computers back, my laptops? Like, to me, it's sort of, it's great in its progress, but it still adds to the confusion.
No, that's a fair point. I mean, I think one of the points that we're trying to figure out how to do is how to press it forward, because sometimes these guys are still being locked out of their offices and the like. So one of the things I think we need to do, members of Congress, is to make sure we're pressuring these offices to open back up. I know the unions are doing that too. And all of these departments and agencies have union representation. And in fact, they're the ones usually who are the plaintiffs in these cases. So I think a big piece is to lean on the administration to open back up. The next big question mark will be whether the Trump administration complies with that order. And essentially, so far they have. You remember the one last week that went up to the Supreme Court, and believe it or not, the Trump Supreme Court said, yeah, we're not going to disturb that lower court ruling that set the injunction in place. But I think the expectation from the lawyers who are representing these cases is there may be a challenge at some point where they're going to have to ask the court to step up the enforcement mechanisms against the Trump administration to make these things happen. So that may be where this goes. I know that I know that your employees, my people are, we've all got question marks about how it's going to play out. But I think the key for them is to not give up, and to make sure that to the extent they can put pressure, like send emails to your supervisors. Hey, when am I supposed to come back? those kinds of things I think are helpful to make sure we're pressing the point and leaning on the administration to get them back at work and comply with the court orders.
Kim, let me add to that. I think Glenn's absolutely right on everything he said. One of the things I've tried to do with federal employees is say, look, we're winning. That doesn't really make a definitive judgment, but in the initial judgments, the courts have found essentially what we have been saying, that the Trump administration and Elon Musk and the Musk people have been acting illegally, inconsistent with either the Constitution or the laws of this country or the civil service protections. And they are moving towards creating a government run by political hacks. We did away with that over a century ago because we wanted a professional group of people, not related to politics, but related to people, serving the people's interests. And we have been winning. And I am convinced that ultimately we're going to win the fact that they've got to go through a regular process. They've been pretending that people who get absolutely outstanding performances somehow aren't performing. Again, what Project 2025 obviously did was they knew exactly what they wanted to do. They wanted to do it very fast, very broadly, Speaker Jeffries refers to it as flooding the zone. They wanted to overwhelm people with just all this activity and this chaos and crisis that they've created. But the courts have been almost consistently saying they didn't have the authority to do that. For instance, OPM fired a lot of people. The court said OPM has zero authority to fire anybody. They have to be fired by the agencies for whom they work, the State Department, the Commerce Department, et cetera, et cetera. So I believe that when we get through all this, at some point in time, relatively near future, hopefully, these courts are slower than we'd like them to be, but in the relatively near term, they're going to determine it was illegal, they're going to reinstate people, and they're going to get their back pay and be reinstated. Now, they may still pursue through the regular process trying to remove people or RIF them. That's not a firing, that's a reduction in force because they're cutting back on the work that's needed. And what I've said is we want to right-size the federal government, number one. You know, whatever we need, whatever Congress has said, we want this done for the American people. We need the proper number of people, no more, no less, to accomplish that objective. And we also need to emphasize to people, there's not one of us on this screen that's not for getting rid of waste, fraud, and abuse, period. Everybody, we want the most efficient, most cost-effective government giving the services that people need and that we have determined they should get. So this is not about waste, fraud, and abuse. We want to get rid of that. What we don't want to do is treat employees so that we traumatize them, their families, and undercut the services they're giving to the American people.
Right. Thank you. Thank you so much. I see Senator Van Hollen has joined us. Thank you so much, Senator, for joining us. As you can imagine, we're talking about the pending court cases and what's going on. And I know one of the things that was brought up earlier is the CR and where the Senate is on that. And so thank you for joining us. And I don't know if you want to elaborate on any of those items now that you're here, but thank you.
Well, Madam Chair, thank you. It's great to join the Prince George's County delegation. Again, I know you're heading toward crossover date, busy time, but it's good to work with all of you. And it's great to be here with my colleagues, Congressman Hoyer and Congressman Ivey. And I had a little readout on what they said, but let me jump to the continuing resolution. This is the partisan, one-sided continuing resolution. I want to, commend my colleagues in the House for voting against it. I plan to vote against the Republican CR and against cloture on the CR. None of us want to shut down the government, but my view is we should vote down this CR and then get our vote on a 30-day contemporary continuing resolution that allows us to do the work on the regular fiscal year 25 appropriations bills, which is what Republicans in the Senate told us they wanted to do until very recently, until the House Speaker, along with President Trump, did this other deal. So that's the best way forward. My view is that this is this House CR is bad for lots of reasons, not just some of the cuts, but in my view, it gives a blank check to Elon Musk to continue his illegal operations. And we do need to stress that I do and my colleagues do, these are illegal operations. This is why the courts are so busy. We had the California decision yesterday, and just last night, we had Judge Berdar in Maryland reach a decision on a whole range of agencies. And so we just need to keep up this fight in the courts, in the Congress, and in communities all over the country. I know you've addressed some of the legal cases, so I won't go over those. But the one other thing, and maybe my colleagues raised it, in addition to the CR situation, the illegal Musk operation, is the next step Republicans in the House and Senate are going to try to take is through the budget reconciliation process, these tax cuts for very, very rich people like Elon Musk at the expense of everybody else in the country, including a big hit on Medicaid, where they're clearly targeting about $880 billion in cuts to Medicaid, which would be harmful to, people throughout the country, seniors in nursing homes, kids with disabilities, others with disabilities, and lots of other people for whom Medicaid is an essential part of their healthcare. So those are the three big issues that we're facing. I'm disappointed on the way the Senate is headed on the vote on the continuing resolution. I think we should have forced a vote on the 30-day.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Van Hollen. I see one hand up, and again, our guests do have to leave at 9:30. So Delegate Lehman.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to all three of our members of Congress. You're doing a fantastic job representing Maryland. I was just curious, something that hasn't been in the headlines as much the last week or two that is really, disturbing, to put it mildly, is what is the latest on Musk and his minions getting into all these very sensitive databases and combing them for information about, child support payments and Social Security numbers and all these other things. I haven't heard as much lately. And are there legal challenges to that? There's a lot of political, sort of, outrage and hand-wringing saying this isn't, legal. But what is there anything to stop the continuation of that kind of thing?
Mary, this is Stenny. The answer is yes. Not only are there cases, but there have been findings that they should not be given access to information, private information that is only available to some few authorized personnel. You had this 19-year-old kid that had the real problem working for Doge, that he went into the Treasury Department and wanted to have access to the Treasury materials. Apparently that he got some at some point in time, but the courts have stepped in and said they're not authorized to do that. They don't have the authority to do that. Again, they've been mostly temporary injunctions. So most of these cases are not final at this point in time. But initially, we have won most of the cases on the temporary injunctions to stop them from doing some of the things they were doing. But Mary, it should be a lot of coverage on this because this is very, very dangerous to subject access for people's personal information, their Social Security numbers, date of birth, their credit scores, their taxes, and things of that nature, their health issues. Information that needs to be held very close and with only limited access. And they went in to get it all. Now, very frankly, my wife, Elaine Kmark, Dr. Elaine Kmark, worked for Al Gore, and she worked in reinventing government. That was, Musk says, well, they've done it. We did do it. And she's on television a lot explaining to people what a considered process they had. And what she said, they never, ask for personal information. They needed no access to personal information to find out, do we need this government service? Is it be performed efficiently? Are the people that are doing the job doing the kind of job we want? You didn't need any of the personal information to get that. So it's a very scary thing that they wanted to get this personal information because, frankly, a lot of us don't believe they had good motivation for doing that.
Thank you, Congressman Hoyer. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Oh, thank you. All right. I know we have one more hand up, but they actually do have to go. It's 9:30. And so I do want to be respectful of their time and making sure that they're getting back to doing the business that we need to do on this very critical, important day. So thank you guys so much. Thank you, Senator Van Hollen, Congressman Hoyer, Congressman Ivey. We really do appreciate
Thumbs
you all
up,
taking
all
the-
of you.
I've got another 5 minutes if you have it, but if you have other business, I understand. That's
Oh,
why
that would be great,
I knew I
Senator.
was getting on late, but so I
No,
can do
no
another
worries.
5.
I knew you had somewhere else to go, so I just wanted to be respectful. But
Appreciate
Thanks,
that.
Nicole. Thanks,
thank
Chris.
you.
Hey, thank you
Take
guys.
care.
Thanks for what you did in the House.
You bet. Thanks for your fight, Chris. You're always on the right side. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Everybody
Thank
keep
you.
up the good work. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
All right. So Delegate Taveras, I see.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you. I wanted to say thank you to all our federal representatives, and thank you, Senator Van Hollen, for making it this morning. What is the plan for protecting rule of law? I'm extremely concerned regarding individuals that are expressing their right to protest and are legally, regardless whether they are legal or undocumented in this country. I understand that there's a case out of Columbia University where he had legal status, he's a green card holder, and now is being sent to Guantanamo. I mean, and we all know that's a political abyss. What are we doing to protect that from happening? I understand that he was shifted from New York to Louisiana intentfully.
So this is a very alarming case, and every American, regardless of their sort of political views, should be very scared about this because it's a direct attack on the First Amendment. So
Exactly.
this was a pro-Palestinian activist at Columbia University, and whether people agree with the positions he took or strongly disagree with the positions he took, the First Amendment prohibits the federal government from punishing speech. And in this case, as you say, he's a legal permanent resident. His wife is an American citizen. She's 8 months pregnant. The federal agents swooped into their apartment, I believe. And as you say, he was removed from New York to Louisiana. A judge the other day is reviewing the case, but he is still in detention. This is a gross violation of the First Amendment, and I would hope that everybody responds to this. I posted on this on social media yesterday because it is a threat to every American. If the president of the United States gets to decide what speech to punish and what speech, not to, we would all be in a world of hurt. That's a dictatorship. And that's why we have the First Amendment in the first place. So thank you for raising that. I mean, the first line of defense are the courts. And I remain hopeful that the judge in this case will stand up and protect the First Amendment. I will say, with respect to Delegate Lehman's question on the private information, there are 12 cases pending at different departments. So at the Treasury Department, the case that was filed was successful at saying that the Musk and the Doge cronies don't get access to that information. But there are other cases in other agencies where we have not yet had rulings, and so it is important to continue to press those efforts and support those efforts. And I do want to commend all the lawyers, and I've been working with them closely in many of these cases because they are right now our first line of defense. And we have Senate Republicans and Senate Republican House members who have just, turned their back on the Constitution and Article 1 as well. So, but Delegate Taveras, thank you for raising that issue.
All right, thank you. All right, well, I don't see any other additional hands. So thank you so much thank you, Senator, for giving us a few more minutes of your time. We really, really do appreciate all the hard work that you're doing. We know it's not easy time right now. And so we really do appreciate, everything that you're doing and just holding the line and really representing our values here in Maryland. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you, and thank all of you for what you're doing in the General Assembly to help protect Maryland. It's always good to see you all, and I'm joined by Roderick Lewis, my regional director, is with us as well. So just want to acknowledge him,
Yes.
and my state director, Ashima Talwar. So please keep in touch. Thanks for what you're doing, and I know that you've got a lot of big challenges in Annapolis as well. Not as crazy as the Capitol, but your own set of challenges. So thanks. Always good to be with you.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much. Okay. All right, members, we have to be on the floor by 10 o'clock. And so there really isn't any other additional business before the body. And so at this point, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All right, thank you. And I will see everyone on the floor in a few minutes.
All right.
Take care. Bye-bye.